had quite a few inquiries from dentists that have been interested in our DENTA4 program and have either attended the COIS program, the occlusion one specifically, and or inquired about it and said, which one should we take? Like, I don't know, Dr. Coyce is such a reputable speaker, and you guys have some amazing speakers too, but how do I know? Like, what am I going to learn in each one of those courses, and what's going to be maybe specifically different? Because my brother and I did enroll and take the functional occlusion course 1 and 2 at the COIS facility, which I can't say enough about. It was an amazing course, amazing material, an amazing speaker. I hope Dr. Coyce, I'd be honored if you actually watch this, because James and I pulled a lot from it. But one of the things that we really saw that stood out as the difference, and we took the course just so that we would know the difference between DENTA4 and or the COIS program, is that we heard a lot about how important it is that people had collapsed bites or worn dentition in the COIS program, how important it was to use a COIS deprogrammer. And for those of you that have taken the course, you'll know what it looks like, but it's something like this, where it has just a little skinny ramp that opens up the bite, and the ultimate goal of this device is to seat the jaw joint and make sure that while the occlusion is seated, that in the TMJ, that no matter what disc position that the patient may have, that there's no pain or soreness, or it doesn't hurt in general. And at that new opening, that it is ultimately elevated open, the occlusion, with this little ramp. Now, I'm not obviously going to explain it in more detail than that, because it doesn't require that. That's a journey that you go through if you're going to go through the occlusion course. But where I found that this is limiting is what we've seen is most dentists that actually are restoring larger comprehensive treatment plans are dealing with either worn dentition from chemical attrition, Bruxer grinders, just a lot of times they're extreme wear. They're not patients that have dentition that is relatively healthy, like this, this skull. But where I want everyone to really know and understand, the ones that want to inquire taking our course with DENTA4, is when you have worn down dentition, this protocol works to stop maybe pain, or not stop pain issues, to discern if that new opening has any pain or discomfort. But what it doesn't do, it doesn't actually enable us to recapture this disc that is often compromised when you have worn down, broken down dentition, for whatever biomechanical reasons why. It's a very complex system. And so what we try to do when dentists are ultimately see that a patient has a deviation, which essentially is a jaw joint that goes like this and then goes back, okay, or a deflection, which is boom, like that, we want to try to help, or it just could be a simple click, pop, and when opening, closing. But ultimately, the reason why these things are happening, deviations and or deflections, is at the end of the day, this disc is not sitting on a healthy position. And what we're trying to do is ultimately create a starting point to open this occlusion, decompress this jaw joint with orthotics, and then go through a series of orthotics that will ultimately get this jaw joint in a healthy position to recapture this disc. Now, there are all sorts of level of joint dysfunction, as you can see, stage 1 to ultimately stage 5, but we're trying to improve it. We don't see it as you're ever going to get to that golden spot where you're like the way God created it to be, but ultimately we're trying to get it to a spot where with this decompression, that we get to an optimal 3 millimeter space between the condyle and the fossa to allow this disc to recapture itself. So that can only happen if you go through a series of orthotics to decompress this jaw joint. So now, getting back to the COIS deprogrammer, we see that as people that have that collapsed envelope of function, and they're just the VDO is worn down. You can't restore to it. What we do know is that if we just open the occlusion on a rotational aspect and we're always going to be in a position that's called adapted CR. An adapted CR is some sort of hybrid of this disc displacement. And what we want to try to do is open it, decompress it, so that this disc can get back into the place where it needs to be. And that's what now, everyone's got to be in a divide in the road if they want to pick which way to go. The deprogrammer, and there are great applications for that, or an orthotic progression, as we've explained in the DENTA4 course, that has a series of orthotics that the patient wears at day and supports the same position at night. But I really want to make sure that everyone knows where this comes into application. When we look at these larger restorative cases where we're doing implant bars on zirconia hybrids on top of implant bars and all sorts of all-on 4, 5, 6 or larger restorative cases, we all have to come to terms that if we're going to invest this much money, and we know these are high dollar value restoratives, from the surgery to the restorative, our personal goal with DENTA4 is we want to make sure that, number one, when we bring that mandible down and forward from a collapsed, just call it occlusion, we want to make sure that ultimately we're improving the airway, that we've quantified that we've improved the airway, day and night time function, not just day function, and that we're also going to find a more optimal jaw joint position where we're sitting on a healthy disc and not working with deviations and or deflections or pops and clicks and such. And normally when we find those two, that spot, that's when we also see that the muscles are generally not hot and all fired up, okay? It's just the face relax itself in general. And then we look at building occlusion that complements this condylar eminence here, and it works together. It works. The occlusion never is fighting itself. It's working together because the airway's happy, the jaw joint's happy, and the occlusion is engineered to complement that. Now, obviously, I can't explain all the intricate details of how that all unravels, but what I can tell you is that our team is more than able to help and excited to help dentists go through this journey and reach that level, what we feel is the highest world-class level that you could achieve in dentistry. There's lots of labs that know how to make nice restorative cases, but there are very few labs and or professional dentists that can actually find and quantify this position so that it actually supports a healthy airway, jaw joint, and muscles. So yeah, in saying that, we have a phase 1 component to our DENTA4 course, which we've completed just recently, and that is to show dentists how to go through this orthotic progression, okay? That you'll be equipped to take a starting bite and go through an orthotic progression of the day and wear a nighttime appliance that supports that. And then ultimately, once the patient has received maximum medical improvement, that's when we look at, okay, what kind of VDO are we working with here? We got a repeatable position. Now let's plan how to restore. I don't really care if it's dentures, if you're moving the teeth orthodontically, or with large comprehensive crown and bridge or implant cases. In my feeling, and I know a lot of other dentists that have are passionate about this, they know that the restorations last longer, and they have helped their patient achieve the maximum health they could with their occlusion. So yeah, in saying that, thank you for dedicating that little time with me, and I hope that was a little bit more helpful of where the divide in the road. Please do not misunderstand me. I've pulled tons of pearls out of the COIS program, the occlusion program, that gave me also a basis, a LEAP basis, that made me understand the occlusion of doing the DENTA4 protocol for those patients that maybe did have pain and discomfort with that orthotic progression or with a COIS deprogrammer. And so anyways, love to be a part of your journey in learning, and if there's anything we can help you with, please reach out to us. Thank you.